good no matter.
Okay, so hello everyone. Our president, Matthew, cannot be here, so I, the vice president, Jenna Shudo, am going to be doing this meeting. Hello, Rachel. Um,
Hello.
Hi.
all
How are you
right.
feeling?
I'm doing well. Still feeling a little rough, but way better than Wednesday.
Good.
Yay. Okay, so thank you for coming, everyone, to our IPA in the Music Classroom workshop. Presented by Lori Hultgren, Professor Lori Hultgren. Um, Frankly, I don't really have much else to say other than take it away, Professor Hultgren.
Great. Before we start, just since Emily is new and coming, do you want to tell her a little bit about ACDA?
Okay, so ACDA is it stands for the American Choral Directors Association, and it's basically like one big group of people who love directing choirs. We do conferences and those are like nationwide,
Mm-hmm.
and they're usually either region or like the national one. There's one coming up in March and it's virtual, of course, and you're able to register for it, and I believe it'll be reimbursed by Towson.
Mm-hmm. Towson usually supports the group.
And we'll yeah, so if you just register and then send us a picture of your receipt, I can send you that link, and I can also just take care of that for you.
The neat thing about those conventions, Emily, is that number one, there's a lot of social networking going on. So you end up meeting choral directors and music producers and sellers and sheet music providers and arrangers and all these different things. When they have it live, when you get to go to them in person again, which will happen probably within this next year, is they have lots of swag bags and things where you get free copies of things and books and texts and things that you can use in the classroom. And my student Meredith, when she was in ACDA, she came home from the convention with bags full of things, bags full of supplies. And for a beginning teacher, it's kind of nice to start building up your library that way. And the presentations that they offer are really a huge variety of everything from solo singing to choral singing to health to recruitment, all sorts of stuff.
The amount of musical swag and just free sheet music that I came home with was comical.
Yeah.
The one time we went, unfortunately, that was when COVID happened. So we came home and then it all went to crap. Excuse my language. But there's just so much you can get out of it. So
I'm sure that they'll reproduce things like that. Now that it's virtual, I'm sure that there will be a component where they'll mail you things too.
Yes. And you can access it for a full year, I believe, after the conference is over, so that if you can't attend on your device that weekend, you can still see it, like on like the cloud thing or whatever. Yes. It also, thank you, Kelly. Anyway, do you have any questions about ACDA before we get started, Emily? No? Cool. All right, take it away, Professor Hultgren.
Okay, so Caitlin and Rachel are both in my vocal pedagogy class right now. So a little bit of what we're talking about tonight are things that we'll be talking about once we get to our IPA unit. But I'm going to do a little bit of an overview and talk about what IPA is and why we use it. So Jenna has already taken my class, so she's going to know these answers and she can be my guinea pig for volunteering. But I would also like to have a little bit of participation from you guys before we get started. What is your impression of what IPA is, or do any of you know what IPA is? Could you define that for me?
International Phonetic Alphabet.
the International Phonetic Alphabet. That's great, Kelly. And why do you think we use this? Does anybody know why we would want to have an International Phonetic Alphabet? Jenna, do you want to volunteer since you know?
Sure. So the reason we use it is because it gives us a universal way in, I believe, most to all languages on how to pronounce things. So, for example, if you're just using like certain like English letters to like try to pronounce something in another language and someone tries to read it as IPA, like it's not gonna work. I don't know. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I think you're doing a really good job.
Thanks.
Sometimes it gets confusing how to explain it. So what the International Phonetic Alphabet does is it basically gives us like a secret decoder ring where we can take any language, and we can show what a word sounds like and how to articulate that word, even if we don't know how to speak that language yet. And then we use the symbols that we're going to read or write down on paper to sound that word out. And it will do everything from showing you how to pronounce the word and also where the syllabic stress is. So let's take an English word, for instance, like P-H-O-N-E. What is the word P-H-O-N-E? Somebody say it for me.
Phone.
Phone. Right. You know that because you are an English speaker. If somebody saw the word P-H-O-N-E, how might they pronounce it in a different way?
Pone.
Pone. Pone was one. Okay. Anybody else have a different way? P-H-O-N-E, how they might sound that out? Hey, Tiana. I'll do a couple. So another way it might be pahone or pahone or any other, way of pronouncing that word. So what this would do in our own English language is it would show that we have different ways of pronouncing the letters P and H. And that in this case, instead of it being a P and a H sound, the P and the H together would make a F sound, an F sound, which is a fricative. And this works for all other languages. So there are lots of sources that I'm going to share with you. Some are book formats and some are online web sources. And I will begin to start sharing pages with you, okay? But I'm still going to need people to unmute at times just so that I can hear you pronouncing these sounds and that I know that you're following along with me, okay? But I'll be sharing screen with you for a while. And I told Jenna that I will make all of these materials available to you after this, so I'll send it to her as a document and she can share it with the group as well. So let me see where I'm going to go first. I want to go to, hold on. See. Give me a second. Here we go. All right, can everybody see my screen? Cool. All right, so this is a page that I use to start teaching people English diction. The reason that I'm approaching it from English is that for the majority of my students that I work with at Towson, English is their first language. In some cases, it is not. But we end up teaching basically to the largest common denominator. So English is what we're speaking in class. English is the best way for us to learn these symbols, and then to use the extended symbols that sometimes only occur in foreign languages to broaden our knowledge of IPA. But I always start with English first. And the way that I like to organize it is English first, or in the vowels first. So here.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we can see your files, but we can't see a sheet if you're looking at a sheet. Sorry.
You can't see my sheet. Oh, because that's what I was trying to figure out. Give me a second. I'm going to have to open it that way then. I'm going to go to. So it shows my documents here, but it wasn't opening the page, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Let me see here. that's one, but that's not the one I want. I have all the tabs open, but it's not allowing me. Give me 1 second. Oh. This is the hardest part. Here we go. Now we got it. Now you see my vowels?
No. Try sharing after you press the file. Like after you choose the file, then share.
Huh. Okay. That's really weird.
It never is like consistent.
So that's what I was nervous about. You're sure that I'm a co-host? Am I a co-host, Jen?
I know that you are able to share screens. Like I made it so that everyone can share a screen.
Okay.
I can, hold on. Yeah, I can make you a co-host. There you are.
Okay, just a second. Gosh, I had all this all pretty and pulled up and cool. Give me a sec. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Oh, Lord. Thank you. Okay. Have no idea why. It might have been because I'm not co-host, Jenna. So here we go.
You are.
Okay, let me keep going. I'll go back through it. So the way that I like to organize this is I approach English diction from the vowels first and then the consonant sounds. The reason that I do vowels first in English is that you will notice how many different vowel sounds we have in English. So if we look through English, there are 22 different vowel sounds, and then we have 22 different symbols that equate those sounds. If we go to a language like Italian, Jenna, do you remember how many vowel sounds were in Italian?
Oh my gosh, I don't
Off the
remember
top of your head?
the number.
It was very small.
Oh. 5?
Exactly.
Yes.
Good job. Great student. So the amount of vowels in Italian are a, e, o, and u. That's it. But in English, we have lots of different permutations where it's kind of different shades of gray. And we like to classify these as 16 pure vowels, right? And then we have 6 vowels down here that are not pure. The reason that they aren't is because they're a combination of movement of 2 different vowels. And I'll get to that as we get down the page. So you see my cursor when I swirl around, right? Okay. So beginning, we have 6 forward vowels. We have the small cased I is the symbol for the E in the word beat. Everybody say with your mics off, you can go beat. Beat. So that E sound is the symbol, the small I. The capital I would show a different version of that vowel. It would be more open. As in bit. So if you say beat and then bit, you can increase that little space in your tongue and feel a little bit larger space towards the front part of your mouth. And that's why they're considered forward, because this tongue is so forward when we pronounce them. Next, we have the closed A as in chaotic. That doesn't exist a lot in English diction because it's more of a dialect. Like if you're from Minnesota, like me, and you say, hey, oh yeah, we're going to the mall. And so it gets a little bit more A. But that A is a very bright sound, and it doesn't work in a lot of different English words. Then we have the open E, which looks like a 3 flipped backwards. So it's a 3 reversed on itself. And that's the as in the word better, be. It would also be in something like let, or head, or set, or feather. All of those would be open E's. Next, This looks like it's a diphthong because it has two letters smushed together like this. They share a spine, but it's actually not a diphthong. It's a single sound that represents the a in the word bat, cat, fat, sat, mad. It's almost a little bit nasal, and it's those two letters, and they share a spine down the center. So they're really supposed to be attached and glued together down the middle. Next, we have our American A. That's very bright. Again, this is more of a dialect. So this would be ah, as in I park the car in the garage. If you're in Boston, it's a very bright ah. In America, we tend to have this more warm sounding ah, as in fall, tall, call you later, my car. But we don't necessarily go as bright as car, that ah bright, right? But it does exist in things like Italian and Spanish and Latin, that brighter sound. So those are our first forward vowels. Next, we have central vowels. This one is the first symbol that isn't a letter, right? So all these other ones, we know these symbols. We've seen these symbols before. They look like normal printing. Now we have this thing that looks kind of like a triangle, but instead of the bottom being unified, it flips the feet out to the side. Sometimes I call it a caret or a mountaintop to make it, that little triangle position. But that is to show a stressed sound. We haven't discussed stressing yet, but that in multiple syllabic words like umbrella, which would be a 3-syllable word, umbrella, which syllable in that word do you think we stress? Do we stress umbrella? Do we stress umbrella? Or do we stress umbrella? Could somebody volunteer for me on that word, umbrella?
The middle syllable.
The middle syllable, right? So in that case, that sound would be unstressed because it's not in a stressed syllable. So when I write out the IPA for the word umbrella, I would use this symbol. If it is in a word where it carries the stress and it's that same sound of I would use this symbol to show that it carried the stress in the word. Up is a good one because it's one syllable. I'm trying to think of another one off the top of my head really quick that would carry stress. I have to think for a second because I didn't list it here. But if I think of another one, I'll tell you so that you can have an example for that in a multi-syllabic word. Next, we get to some words or some symbols that have different stressing and some R's that color those vowels. So we have the as in heard, where I'm going to hook my R, and we show that hooked R sound by putting this little cursive R symbol next to the E. Or in a British way, where they wouldn't pronounce that hooked R, heard. I heard you say that later. Heard instead of heard. So this is that same sound where this one has the R color and this one does not. The last one again would be schwa, an unstressed syllable. So in the word butter, which syllable do we stress? But or Do we say butter or butter? The first one, right? So the carry of the stress is the first part, so we know that that second vowel could be schwa. And in America, we might pronounce it butter, butter, and have more of that color to it. In singing, when we are singing, we usually like to not hook our R's this way. This is more of describing an accent or a dialect. Like if we were singing something in a southern dialect, you want to say pass the butter, right? And you want them to sing it. If you're in Oklahoma, let's say you're in the musical Oklahoma and you want to have that R sound, if you were writing that out in Diction, you would put that R colored there because you would want them to hook the R that way to reflect that diction. Next, now we have some vowels that are going farther back in the mouth, and that's why, again, it's forward, central, back, is that when you're pronouncing them, E is going to feel more forward and more spacious than which is more in the middle part of my mouth, and now we're going back to all the way back in our mouth, like ooh, and ooh, you should feel that whole space going back into where your soft palate and your uvula and the back part of your tongue is. So again, this is a normal U that symbolizes the sound oo as in boot. This one again is a new symbol. It's not a normal letter, but it looks like a horseshoe, and then the horseshoe is flipped upside down on its head. And this is to symbolize the sound as in book, look, took, shook. O is again close to that really perfect Minnesota accent, like, oh my God, I went on the boat, boat. But normally when we use that O vowel in American dialect, we sing or say, oh, like, oh, I know that you're doing that. I know. And that diphthong is going to happen later. We'll talk about that later. But the very pure O, like, oh my God, again, is more of a dialect. It's the same as that very bright ah that we had in ka in Boston. It's more of a dialect. It's not going to be purely said very often in English. There will be shades of gray in the way that we pronounce that O vowel. Next, we have the open O. This again looks like a letter, but it's backwards. It's a C that's flipped the wrong direction. And this is the aw sound is in saw. Again, I already said the ah is in fall, tall, call, hallmark. And then we get to the fun ones, diphthongs. These are two vowel sounds that are put together in one unit. And that is why they are written next to each other like this, and they are considered to be a vowel in itself. We have the chewing sound of bait, which is chewing from an A and an E together, bait. Everybody say bait. And feel your mouth move as you go through that word. Feel your tongue move, feel your jaw move by your back molars a little bit and your tongue kind of caress the sides of those teeth. Bait, bait. Next is the one I did earlier, boat. And this is an O and an U as in look, right? The pure O and the U of look. Boat, boat. Note, float. All of those. Next we have an ah, that bright ah, and the E of bit, bite, bite, tight, height, fight. All of those words is that I chewing diphthong. Next is the ow, ouch, couch, flouting. Can't think of another one right off the top of my head. This happens to be my favorite. Oi. Oi is my favorite diphthong because it's an expression in itself. If you're used to hearing Yiddish, it's oi gewalt. So oi, boy, toy, joy, employ. Those are all oi diphthongs. And then this is considered a diphthong. It's you, where we're going to use a glide. This J symbol symbolizes a Y sound of use. Okay, so those are the 6 diphthongs. I'm going to go on to consonants. This is super fast. In vocal pedagogy, this will be gone over much more extensively, and you'll have lots of time to let it settle in. But having a chart like this on hand right now is a great beginning for all of you. Consonants. So this is the consonant page. In English, again, we have 25 consonants, which doesn't seem like a crazy amount. But if you look through these consonants, you'll see again, some of these are normal letters. There's a normal letter that symbolizes a sound. And then we get into some weird symbols that don't quite look like letters. And they take a little bit more study so that you get used to seeing them and associating a sound with them. So I'll go through this page. These are all very obvious in the beginning. I bet I could call on somebody who doesn't even know IPA. You could tell me what these are. These are called stop plosives. And it's because your mouth basically stops the sound, and then all of a sudden air is explosively released to create the sound of that consonant. So p, as in pet, we're using our lips as that stop plosive place for it to stop the air and then articulate the P. B, big, same thing. The air pressure builds up behind my lips and then it's released to create that sound. T, top, again, I'm releasing it with my tongue and the hard palate right behind my front teeth. D, day, happens to be in the same place. K, kite is now moving a little bit farther back in the mouth. not at the tip of the tongue, but closer to my hard palate and where my mouth starts to arch up into that arch in the roof of my mouth. G, garden, goes even farther back with kind of the hump of my tongue, closer to where my uvula is. And my soft palate, it's starting to move closer towards that back part of the arch inside the roof of my mouth. And then finally, we have lips in the front, with the tip of my tongue, and as in thing. This is the NG sound, like ring, hung, hung. And if you notice where your tongue is touching, it's actually that back hump area coming up and coming in contact with your uvula and your soft palate. These have the identification of being called nasals. And it is because when I pronounce an M, an N, or an NG sound, the air, instead of coming through my mouth at that point, starts to come out through my nasal passages. So everybody pronounce an M for me on a pitch. Go, you should be able to feel air coming through your nose right here. And then if you do, again, air should be warmly going against the tips of your fingers. And then last, my mouth is open, but my tongue is staying all the way up against my uvula, and that air again is coming out through my sinus passages, my nasal passages. Next, we have 9 fricatives. F as in flower, v as in voice, and now we get something that looks like the symbol for theta in Greek. If you're familiar with that, it's a circle with a little wave in the middle. And this is to symbolize the in through. And this symbol, which is a backwards 6 and then a T crossing through it, is the v in than. And the difference between these two sounds is something that we called voicing and unvoicing. In through, I can't sing. If you tried to sing a TH sound like that, there's no pitch. But if I pronounce, I can pronounce that TH sound with sound behind it, with pitch. So that's why we call this symbol an unvoiced TH, and this would be a voiced TH because it carries pitch. Next, I'm trying to go as fast as possible, but make sure that you guys understand all the symbols. We have an S as in silly, Z as in zebra, and now this again looks like an S kind of, but it looks like somebody stretched it out diagonally and made it go side to side. This is the sh as in shade. The next one is the zh sound as in massage, mirage, corsage. You'll see this symbol a lot in French. It occurs in French a lot in your French IPA. This is the as in heat, when we actually want to have that sound, that aspirate H. Next we have one little lateral, lovely. And this again is when the tongue is coming up against your hard palate. It's a small cased L. Then we have R, called a glide, rain. And the reason is that to pronounce that R sound, there's movement. You're gliding, you're moving your lips, you're moving your tongue to articulate that consonant. Rain, rain. I'm moving my embouchure in the front of my mouth. Yes, same thing with the Y sound. You might see the J and think it's going to make a J sound like jam or jump or jet. It's not. It's going to be a Y sound. So it's called a glide, and that makes the Y sound in yes. When is a quite proper way for us to pronounce this WH sound. Frequently, if you're British, you'll say white, where, when. In American dialect, we kind of say white, where, when. So we don't put that HW sound in our singing or in our speaking as much, but in certain dialects, or if we're singing something that's by a British composer, we might be wanting to have that articulation there, and that's the HW sound, as opposed to the W as in were. The last two symbols are a combination of letter sounds. This is a little baby case T that's riding on the back of an esh sound for shade. And that symbolizes ch in child. Ch. So watch, catch, fetch, catch up. That ch sound is that T plus the esh. And finally, we have a D and a Z, the Z that we had earlier for zh, put together. And it's sharing the spine. And this is going to give us that J sound that I was talking about earlier. J as in jump, jet, Jessica, jigger, jealous, all of those things. So that's the DZ put together. That is the entire English IPA alphabet in a real crash course. So the reason that this is important is that if you start becoming familiar with these symbols, and then you look up IPA translations of your other languages, you're going to be able to imitate a lot of those sounds just by looking them up. Now, let me stop my share really quick. I'm going to go back to my documents. I need to reduce this and reduce this. Okay. And I want to get my next one. Are you seeing me now or no? Thumbs up. Can you see this page still? No? No, I need to share that. You didn't see it or you did?
We
Okay.
can see you, but not the page.
Just, give me one more second and I will do it. How am I gonna? I need to click these off. Nobody can see this yet. So I'm gonna have to open it and then share it. Here we go. Okay. Open it. And then I'll open you up again, and then I'll share you again, and then I'll open you again. Ta-da! A lot of extra moves. You see it now, right? Good. Okay, so this is kind of the fun thing. So I gave you the English alphabet. I gave you the charts so that you can start seeing things. There are some extra symbols that exist in foreign languages that I'm not going to go through with you today. There's no way that I could comfortably go through Latin and Spanish and Italian and German and French and showing you the extra. There's some extra vowel sounds and there are some extra consonant sounds. And if you find a chart like we just did, then you can kind of use that chart, like I said, like a secret decoder ring to finding out what these sounds are in those other languages. I like to have a book on hand for my own library that has all my languages present. So I've put a list here of a bunch of resources for you, and then I'm going to show you some websites, and then we're going to finish at a really cool site where I'm going to pull this up, and you're going to get to hear a bunch of different languages, and I'll show you how to use the website, and it's so much fun. Okay, so first of all, Diction for Singers by Joan Wall is a book that I use when I'm teaching English and Italian diction. This is our English book, and it has an entire book of exercises and worksheets and symbols that show you how to write all of your English words with syllabic stress and lots of practice things. So this is a great text. The singing book is the book that we're using right now in vocal pedagogy as our kind of master text. And this has a lot of different sheet music in it that you can use with solo voice lessons, for instance, if you're trying to teach your students, or if you're able to have a class where you do one-on-one voice lessons in everything from elementary to secondary ed. And it also has a lot of information on vocal pedagogy and vocal health and the breath mechanism and the larynx. And then there's this unit where it has a chart in it similar to what I just showed you for English diction. So it shows you these different symbols, and then it shows you a couple of special symbols for foreign languages, but it doesn't go into great depth. What you will learn as you're going through your music ed degree here is that a lot of resources are great, but you need to have more than one, because sometimes one book is not the perfect source. It's not the all encapsulating text. So I like to have a combination of things on hand, but definitely some of these books like this one, Diction for Singers, is great because you'll see it has English, Italian, Latin, German, French, and Spanish. And it's one book. And I looked it up for you guys tonight to see how many copies are on hand. If you go onto Amazon, you can get it used for $29. So for $29, you could get a book that covers this IPA and all these different languages, and that breaks down to $5 per language. So the cool thing is that if you think about it as being, you know, the bang for your buck, you can look for a book like this one. There's a couple other ones that I listed also. This one is a good one, the Moriarty, where it has multiple languages in one text. And if you can purchase it as a used text even, it doesn't have to be in pristine condition, you know. It's basically to have the charts and to be able to read through it to help you. So those are my first suggestions. Simply Singing is a great one. This is the Moriarty book. And again, this has Italian, French, Latin, and German. This is by a man named Thomas Grubb. He was kind of thought of as being the French guru of how to speak and sing French. And he focuses on a man named Pierre Bernac. And he actually taught here in Baltimore for a long time and up in Manhattan and at Juilliard School. So in Baltimore, he worked at the Peabody Conservatory. And I was friends with him, and his French book is terrific, but it's only French. It's lots and lots of French. This book, Phonetic Readings of Songs and Arias, is great because it will have phonetic pronunciations of a lot of songs and arias already written out for you. And they've already been translated into IPA. So it's a great resource to look up common repertoire. Brand new compositions are obviously not going to be there, but traditional things, more classical things that are part of our singing canon will be available in this book. Another one focusing purely on English diction is the Madeline Marshall. This one is great, but this is the David Adams is going more towards graduate school. If you're interested in pursuing a master's degree, this would be something that could maybe help you for those level courses. It's kind of dense, and it's very intense, and it's very detail oriented, and it's probably a little bit farther than what you're all trying to do right now in your coursework, but it would be something that if you have a Christmas list or a wish list of a book that you might want to get as a gift someday, that would be something to have in your library. Then I'm going to leave number 10 for a second because we're going to spend some time at this site. But this series, this lyric diction series by Sherry Montgomery, is a huge source of IPA. There are many, many, many different books that are available, and there's a website that I'm going to take you to where they have some free posters and things that you can use for educational purposes, and there are exercising things that you can use on their website totally for free, and that's what we will go to next. These bottom ones are all kind of online things or dictionaries that I've listed for you. The Pons Online is great. The Word Reference is another great website. You probably have already used leader.net maybe for your voice lessons where you've looked up texts and translations there. We'll be going to this homepage in a second. And then I listed two last dictionaries. The Bantam New College French and English Dictionary is really good. And the Pronouncing Dictionary of American English, the Kenyon and Not. That's another dictionary that we used for for Italian and English diction. And it has an entire dictionary of how we pronounce our words in English and the IPA provided for those words to help us with clarity of pronunciation. Oh my gosh, I'm going so fast. So then I want to go down here. Give me 1 second. Yes. Can you see it? No? Oh no, maybe I'm gonna have to, so you still see the same page that I had. Oh my gosh, so I'm gonna have to stop share. Okay, and then I'm gonna go to the thing. This is very crazy, and then I'm gonna open it again. Share screen. It just won't let me share right away. Now you can see it, right? No? Yes? Huh. All right, so this is that website that I just had for you 2 seconds ago. I can't remember the title of the website. STM, right? So this is the publisher down here. This is a very fun site. There are lots of things that I will show you on this site, but this is free. So we're going to click on a symbol. Does anybody want to hear a certain sound or a symbol? Do you want to give me a symbol? Or I know Jenna. Isn't this fun? Watch. Jenna's looking. Pick something, Jenna. What do you want to hear?
Oh my God. Okay.
Let's do this, for instance. We just did this. Okay. So here's this. So I clicked on the DZ symbol that I just showed you. Okay. So here we have English, Italian, German, and French. Isn't this fun? All right. So in English, this would be sh. This is the esh, that diagonal stretched S. And this makes sh as in shine. Now you see a whole word written in IPA. Shine. An AI diphthong and an N. Then you have Italian, lascia. And we know that this, we didn't talk about stressing yet, but this little symbol, when you see a 1, it shows you which part of the word carries the stress. So lascia happens to be a 2-syllable word that is divided right here, right? Lascia. And we know that la is going to carry the stress because they put the 1 here. If they put the 1 over here, it would be lascia. But we know that this is lascia because of that little 1. And Sterne in German, and Champ. So all of this shows us the SH sound. Now if I go over here, let's say you didn't know how to pronounce this, and you didn't have me on hand, and you didn't get to have vocal pedagogy yet.
American.
Can you hear it?
Shine.
British.
Shine.
Italiano. Lasciare.
Deutsch. Sterne.
Français. Champ.
So it will go through all of the words you could hear. I just want to make sure my audio was being shared. Okay, here's another example.
American. Child.
British.
Child.
Italiano. Cielo.
Deutsch.
Deutsch is actually the word. So in German, which happens to be the word Deutsch, they were also showing that ch in Deutsch. So if we go back, isn't this fun? It's an entire chart. You can click through it like this, where you go all the way through. You could go through every little symbol that we have, even ones that you and I didn't go through yet, because this doesn't occur in English. This is something that's only going to occur in French or German. Why don't we do that one so you can hear it? This happens to be the which is an umlauted O in German, or in French, feu. So it's going to be schön and feu.
Deutsch. Schön.
Français.
So you'll see this is just a great resource. It's a great resource to have. It's fun. You can hear it. You can practice. You can go through it. And this is free. If you happen to want to purchase one of the books from this publisher, it would give you further exercise and things to work on. But things like this are relatively new. IPA and diction and vocal pedagogy is a relatively new science. This is not something that has been part of our musical education for hundreds of years. This is something that has been relatively recent, you know, within my lifetime, where all of this has been incorporated. Is there any other sounds that you guys would like to hear from this before I show you a couple other charts?
I forgot what the upside down Y was. Can you show us that one? I'm interested.
Yeah. Here we go. So if you click on the upside down Y, it'll take you right there. This happens to be the GLI sound, GLI in Italian. And when we write it in Italian, because it's the GLI, you double it. So again, this is where we talk about double consonants. Jenna, since you had that class with me, like if it was aspetto or mamma with a double M, when we have double consonants, we would double the IPA on this side, right? Do you remember that? When there's 2 M's or 2 T's or 2 L's over here?
No, I don't remember that.
Oh, wait, no, you didn't have Italian with me. You had vocal ped.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's why. It's because you didn't have Italian diction with me. Sorry, didn't mean to throw you under the bus. So in Italian diction, when I taught that class, when you have double consonants in Italian, you double them here in IPA. That's why there's two. And figlio, this GLI sound, happens to be one that you double even though it's not doubled. So this is an exception to the rule. Instead of just putting one of these Ys, which would symbol the L sound, we put two. But I'll play that so you can hear it.
Italiano. Figlio.
Figlio. And that sound is where the air is basically sneaking out the back sides of your tongue while your tongue is being held in that L position. If all you want to do it, put your tongue like Lia. We're going to put your tongue at the tip of the teeth like Lia. And I want you to hold your tongue there and go and it feels weird. We don't have that sound in English. The only English word I could think of was the name Lia, but we wouldn't pronounce it unless we had a little bit of a speech impediment in English. But in Italian, that's how you pronounce the GLI sound. So I want to go back. I don't know if it's going to let me do that. It's not going to let me do that. Okay, let me come back. All right, what time is it? Do you know what time it is, Jenna? I don't have my phone.
6:50.
Oh my God. All right, so that was super duper fast. I showed you the English alphabet and I showed you a bunch of books and textbooks and websites that you can use to enhance your music study and to look up things. Do you have any questions for me? I feel like I should open this up to questions for a little bit. If you have questions about diction or IPA or whatever. Yeah, Jenna.
So what would be like, I don't know how well you can explain it in like 9 minutes or less, but how are you able to like introduce IPA or like use it in like a high school, for example, a high school choir setting?
Great question. That's a great question. So all of you probably haven't had, your advanced methods classes yet, or where you're doing even lesson plans maybe yet, for more advanced groups. But part of at least the mission here in Maryland, I know, is to have more multicultural music as part of our classical musical canon. And we want to be representing different cultures, different genders, for sure, in our compositions. And doing that, using IPA is going to help you expand into languages that maybe you haven't studied yet. Maybe you've only learned, a couple foreign languages here at Towson, but you might have a song that you want to do. I used Hebrew earlier, maybe in Hebrew. And you are not Jewish and you haven't been to synagogue and you don't know how to read it, and you would use this IPA so that you could figure out how to pronounce it, and then you would use those symbols with your class and put it up on a whiteboard or something and say, hey, this is how you pronounce the as in Baruch, and then you would teach them how to pronounce that in the diction. Same thing if Chen Yi is another female composer here. She is part of the university in Kansas. And she's a Chinese composer. And it's really cool to be able to do things like in Mandarin, because that is not a language that I grew up or in my collegiate experience got to learn. I mean, I got to do a lot of different things. I did Swedish and Czech and Russian, in addition to French, German, Italian, English, Latin, Hebrew, and Spanish. But I didn't get to do any Middle Eastern languages. So for me, like, I still want to learn how to sing in Korean, and I want Dr. Jin to help me with that so that I can learn the IPA symbols and go along with that, because there's a wealth of repertoire there. So that would be my advice, Jenna, is that basically as a teacher, I always like to use the analogy of a coloring box. When we start out in kindergarten and we have those big fat crayons and we have like blue, red, yellow, green, and black and brown, right? And that's it. It's our big fat crayons. But when you know that you've made it as a kid is when you get that sweet like spindle carol one that has like 3 different tiers, and there's a crayon sharpener in there, and there's all the different colors of flesh, and there's metallics and stuff. So as a teacher, same thing. I want to have as many colors of choice that I can possibly offer to my students. And that goes for how I teach them, the methods that I teach them, the repertoire that I teach them, because it should be like a giant smorgasbord that you're getting excited about, and that's new to you too. You don't want to have the same thing year after year after year with your students. So learning IPA is going to open up this wealth of knowledge where you don't feel like, oh, I can't do that because I don't know how to pronounce it, or there aren't any recordings online of this brand new, you know, composer. They haven't been recorded yet. Gosh, I can't do their music because I don't know how to pronounce that or do it. This will allow you to be able to not be afraid to approach anything, because there are these charts, and as long as you go through it methodically and sound out each sound and then compare it to the language and practice it and use resources like dictionaries or other teachers or websites, you know, to make sure that you're articulating the sound clearly, then the world is your oyster. You're going to be able to teach all different languages and styles with your students, and you'll never have a limit. So that's how I see IPA as coming really in handy for whether you're doing one-on-one voice lessons or choral repertoire, even in elementary school. If you talked about this as being a cool way, like a decoder ring, to figure out how to pronounce something, and you had like a really simple round, what if you did a really simple round in Mandarin or in Korean? And there are a couple songs in that singing book that we have for our vocal pad right now, Caitlin and Rachel. There are a couple Korean songs in there that are like 2 stanzas long, you know, that are really simple. And you could use that in a way of bringing in yet another style and another way of writing letters that could excite your students about how to approach the written word, you know. So that's my advice about that. Any other questions?
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
was going to say thank you for compiling all those resources together. I feel like the most helpful like meetings and master classes are when we like get to know like what resources are available to us. So I just wanted to thank you for
So
putting
listen.
it all into one little.
So again, all you have to do is do Google searches. Do you know what I mean? You guys, you are so lucky that you're coming through your education at this point. You know, I grew up on the internet as well, but I was also at that bridging point where we were still forced to go to a library a lot. So we would have to go to the library to get a lot of these resources and scores and things. Now when I talk to my students, they're like, I never go to the library, you know, because you have it all on your desktop or on your laptop or on your phone. So this is constantly evolving. And every year there are more and more resources out there, and they're changing. They're ever changing. So like the reason that I hadn't shown that before, when Jenna was like, oh my God, why don't I know what this website is? It's new things, you know, it's new publishers, it's new books that are coming out, and they're available now. And I like to be curious, and I like to pull new things like that every year. So my list every year gets longer and longer, and sometimes I eliminate things and I'm like, that's not really useful anymore because this new thing is so much easier, you know? So keep doing Google searches when things excite you or make you curious, or like Jenna, you know, if you have a question, you think, I wonder where I'd find that. Go and do a Google search and write it down. Keep a notebook, keep something in your room where it's like your resource manual, you know, and you can put down these websites and places to go when you have a snow day like today and you don't feel like doing work, but you might want to do a couple searches and look through some things that might help you accomplish your homework over the weekend. Any other questions about IPA or diction or languages?
Could I take a picture?
Huh?
Could I take a picture for the Instagram?
Of course you can.
Okay.
Hopefully I haven't scared Rachel and Caitlin. Rachel and Caitlin are in vocal pedagogy right now, and probably they're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a lot. I promise when we go through this, I am not going to do it in 1 hour. It will not be 1 hour, slam, bam, and we're done with the IPA. I promise that it's going to be stretched out over several weeks, and we're going to do lots of speaking and writing exercises in class. Good, Rachel.
All right, everyone smile. Yay,
Good.
awesome.
Cool. So hopefully this was helpful. It was a lot to
was.
cram in, and I'm sorry that I wasn't more adept. That's never happened to me before with sharing screens.
Really?
Never. But I think it, for some reason, because I pulled up everything to be ready. Like when I'm in class, I share screen and it pops up. So it had to be something about the way that I signed on to come onto your site,
Oh.
the Zoom link or something. But well, I hope you're welcome.
Hi,
I miss you.
Lori.
Hi, Deanna. I miss you guys. I want to be in person. Emily, I feel horrible because you were originally assigned to me and I couldn't teach you.
It's all right. Things happen.
Hopefully I get to work with you in masterclass and work with you more. So I got too many